Es ceru, ka Erminia Šakitāno ir klāt. Jā, tātad Erminia Šakitāno, Itālijas kultūras un tūrisma ministra padomniece. Un viņas prezentācija būs ar nosaukumu Jaunais Eiropas Bauhaus ES finansētos kultūras mantojuma saglabāšanas pasākumos. And I'm going to mention this in English, so you know that this is your cue. So Erminia Šakitāno, Senior Advisor at Minister's Cabinet of Ministry of Culture, Italy, new European Bauhaus in EU-funded projects with potential impact upon cultural heritage. Erminia, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here with you, and I'm very glad for this invitation. Thanks again. Thanks to organizing and by padomniece in particular. Because all these occasions, like for the important EU presidency conference in Riga, break the boundaries across disciplines and sectors and contribute to progress towards sector-focused, to people-centered approach to culture and cultural heritage. So I'm very also happy that my presentation complements and integrates the previous presentation. So let me share it.
So we're waiting for your presentation, and when it's on, then I'm gonna let you begin. Yep, we can see it, so you can start presenting.
Is it okay?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. So I'm very glad that I also will speak about the new European Bauhaus from a perhaps different angle, which is the angle of cultural heritage and the EU funds intervention upon cultural heritage, which really complements it was what the topic that was touched at the end of the previous presentation. And also one of my objectives was to understand how we can incorporate the principles of the new European Bauhaus in new EU funding programs, and in particular with reference to what it is managed directly by national authorities. So first of all, let me recall that the new European Bauhaus has a strong political impulse from the presidents of the European Commission itself. This is very important because this is something which is favoring the mainstreaming, the integration of the principles of the new European Bauhaus across several disciplines and policies of the EU. This was very well said by Eva, the important and key principles of the European Bauhaus, what it is. It is a movement which is steering the transformation of our society along the three values of sustainability, aesthetic, and inclusion, in order to change our way of living and facilitate the achievement of the objectives of the European Green Deal, and of course of the Paris Agreement on climate action. But what is important for me to stress is that the new European Bauhaus, it was designed as a bottom-up process. And this is important because now I'm also going to tell you about another set of quality principles which were developed together with ICOMOS, between the ICOMOS and the European Commission on intervention on cultural heritage. So this was a bottom-up process. There's been a huge participation of stakeholders in building the meanings and the principles and the values of the new European Bauhaus. This important construction of meaning, collective construction of meaning, led to the Commission then to adopt and to frame everything in a communication. And now we really have, starting with 2022, the delivery, so-called delivery phase, so the implementation phase. But the reflection still continues, and it was already mentioned, in particular the reflection on how to label the projects, what are the quality criteria, what characterize a project which fulfills the objectives of the new European Bauhaus. And this is quite interesting because now we can really contribute to this debate and fine-tune our approaches. Up to now, the European Bauhaus has collected, in particular, the contribution and the active participation of 376 partners, which means that it's really a collective endeavors. The principles are look at into global and local approach, participatory and transdisciplinary approaches, and along some thematic axis, which is reconnecting to nature, regain a sense of belonging, prioritizing the places that people that need it most, and also to looking for a long-term life cycle thinking in the industrial ecosystem. As you see, it's really a very cross-cutting and transversal approach. This community, it's wide, it's huge. Some countries have brought more partners. We have seen that now there will be a new partnership, new partnership opportunities. But as we see, all the EU countries are participating and are contributing to this collective discussion. But what is also important, as we wanted to see what are the possibilities, what are the opportunities in the EU policy and program system, is that this initiative is cross-cutting a very rich policy ecosystem, which looks at, for instance, all the initiatives that are the first column on the left, all the initiatives, EU initiatives that are linked to the Green Deal, and in particular to the mitigation of the impact of climate change. So the renovation wave, the 50 for 55 package, the Zero Pollution Action Plan, the EU strategy on green infrastructure. So it's very important to keep an eye on all those initiatives. Territorial policies like cohesion policy, the culture and creative sector. So what is happening and in the framework of the new European Agenda for Culture, Creative Europe, and the European Framework for Action on Cultural Heritage. The social dimension, what is happening under the European Pillar of Social Rights, for instance, education and skills, so European education area, education for environmental sustainability, European skills agenda, the digital decade, so all the initiative under the digital decade, research and innovation horizon, and industry, a new industrial strategy for Europe. This is because when we wanted to look for support and funding for the initiative, we really need to break the boundaries of the usual sorts of financing that, for instance, is Creative Europe for the cultural sector. We really need to look into the full sphere of EU funds at the EU level. And also we need to remember that we don't start from scratch, and in particular on cultural heritage at EU level, we have reached a very important consensus on a new approach, which should be holistic, should be integrated, should be evidence-based, and should be multi-stakeholders. This participatory and multi-stakeholders approach and integrated approach are totally shared with the new European Bauhaus. Together with ICOMOS, the European Commission has formulated quality principles for EU-funded interventions on cultural heritage. These quality principles take into account the fact that many people take decisions at different levels, and the quality is not only the result of the work of experts, or the result of a good process, but it's also in the hands of different people who might take decisions, but needs to be aware of what means to deal with culture and heritage values. And now it is important to take into account some principles to achieve a quality result. And the ultimate result should be to benefit the people and the communities and respect the environment, of course. But this should be achieved through cooperation and participation. As in analogy with what Jena said, so explain you just in a few minutes what are the Davos, the principles of the Davos Declaration, also the quality principles developed by ICOMOS on for EU-funded interventions with potential impact on cultural heritage are 7 quality principles. And together with the 7 quality principles, so knowledge base, public benefit, compatibility, proportionality, discernment, sustainability, and good governance, there are some selection criteria that are well described in the document, which helps, and also are described with a non-specialist approach, so to be understood by all the different diverse actors that take very important decisions at all stages of projects, from the programming phase to the implementation to the monitoring and evaluation of every project. For instance, the concept of keeping in mind the responsibility towards a future generation, or keeping a spirit of a place. It's something very important, and it's very much connected to the approach to beauty that and aesthetics that we have already analyzed. The document also describes a step-by-step implementation, describing well in detail what are the aspects and the criteria that should be taken into account at all stages, key principles and standards, but also at level of programming, project briefs and tenders, design, procurement, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and some aspects related to the government, risk assessment, research, education and training, and also how to reward quality. Why is it important to remind those principles? Naturally, also in the cultural heritage sector, the green transition and the deep understanding that also the heritage sector should play a role in guiding the green transition and achieving the objectives of the Paris Agreement was very well rooted and very deeply discussed. A very important document produced at European level is the European Cultural Heritage Green Paper, where all the interconnection between cultural heritage and the Green Deal are well described and analyzed. The Climate Heritage Network has also created a global network at a global level, and it's supporting the sector and the cultural heritage operator in better understanding what role they can play to guide the green transition. For instance, not only raising awareness on the risk that heritage faces in face of disasters, which is the traditional role, but also understanding that the cultural heritage are solutions that can drive climate action. For instance, in helping changing behaviors of citizens. Again, this is very well connected to the new European Bauhaus principles. And also an important aspect is the greening of cultural heritage practices. For instance, using techniques and materials in the restoration process which do not harm the environment and do not, of course, harm the health of the conservators and restorers. So we go back to the new European Bauhaus, and we see that the aim of the initiative is to generate an impact at 3 levels: transforming the places on the ground, really our living environment, transforming and enabling the ecosystem for innovation, and diffusing the new meanings through education and culture. And it's very interesting to see how this relates to our reflection that we were carrying on in the cultural heritage sector. Therefore, there's a big effort of the Commission in, of course, working at policy level and mobilizing EU programs to contribute to deliver those impacts at the 3 level. And there is also an important call on member states to mobilize EU resources in shared management also to deliver on this in this direction. The 3 important streams of funding that we can use at EU level to contribute to the European Bauhaus are in fact articulated and communicated by the Commission along those three important objectives. Transformation of the enabling environment for innovation, mobilizing EU programs for the transformation of places in the ground, and mobilizing EU programs for the diffusion of meanings. This is very important because following also on the website of the new European Bauhaus, the operators that want to contribute and find opportunity need really to understand in which area they can contribute better. It's clear that, for instance, of architecture or construction, the construction phase is very well placed in the programs that aim at the transformation of places in the ground or the living environment. While, of course, enabling environment for innovation is very much targeting research and other type of initiative of this type. So there is a wide spectrum of EU funds that can be used, in fact, where progressively we see different calls launched by the European Commission. Main projects, main calls, for instance, fall under the Horizon Europe, which is the EU Fund for Research and Innovation. But we also can see something under the Program of Environment and Climate Action, the Creative Europe Program, the European Solidarity Corps, Digital Europe, also, and then Erasmus program in particular, and naturally the European Regional Development Fund, even if this is starting to be better developed, particular at national level, and it's very important to be developed at national level. This is a kind of timeline of the actual calls. We have actually some Horizon calls which has just been concluded. We have some calls, for instance, from the COSME, targeting enterprise, which is still ongoing. So there is a continuous update, as Yava said, of information and calls ongoing. But it's very important to understand where each of us can contribute. The call on places of education and knowledge was very well explained in the previous presentation, so I will skip this part. But this is something I want to highlight, because it's an area where we are working at national level. The inclusion of the principles of the new European Bauhaus in the recovery and resilience facility plans, national plans under Next Generation EU. This is a one-off opportunity. We have in Italy included the culture and cultural heritage in our national recovery plan, resilience facility plan. It's a very important percentage of the investment, so much more than the 2% that was foreseen and at European level. But what is also important that some of those investments can really contribute, and we are now analyzing those investments. But at the very beginning, we have allocated 4 billion and 275 billion of investment on culture in particular, but we have already foreseen a specific measure which is supporting the cultural operators to promote innovation and eco-design, eco-inclusive design. And this call, this particular call, is targeting exactly the new European Bauhaus. In particular, it is a capacity building call, and it is also helping the sector to change their approach to cultural production, for instance, by adopting and by using minimum environmental criteria for cultural events. because we know that also cultural events can generate and produce an impact on the environment, for instance, festivals or expositions. So we want to reduce this impact, and we are helping the sector to be sure that after we recover after the pandemic, we want to attract new public, but we don't want to create damage to environment by improving attracting new public. Another important aspect is mainstreaming. We are now looking into our cohesion funding opportunities to see how we can mainstream the new European Bauhaus principles. It's already mentioned in our partnership agreement of cohesion policy 2021-2027. There are several possibilities, in particular in the operational programs, and in particular on the operational program on culture that we have proposed. As for the examples, I've selected a few examples from Italy. And I decided to select examples that were awarded the new European Bauhaus Prize 2021. We have now the second edition ongoing of the new European Bauhaus 2022. You know that the criteria are reconnected with nature, regaining a sense of belonging, prioritizing the places and people that need it most, and shaping a circular industrial ecosystem and supporting life cycle thinking. These are the type of projects that are awarded with the new European Bauhaus Prizing. So from neighborhood lights for urban renaturalization to contemporary art as a tool to stimulate urban and social regeneration. I just want to highlight a few examples from Italy, which were shortlisted. One example was shortlisted in the category of new European Bauhaus Awards, which targets existing completed examples and projects, and under the target under the category 6, which is preserve and transform cultural heritage. And it is important to see how cultural heritage is seen in a very broad way and approach. This is an open-air museum, of the resistance in Milan, in Italy, and which is using digital tools to reconnect important places in the cities and to create a kind of urban museum, which helps also the citizens to reconnect to an important part of our story, that shared story, which is connected to European values as well. Among the 30 shortlisted projects of the new European Bauhaus Rising Stars, there are also two interesting projects in the category of preserve and transform cultural heritage, which is the Via Appia, Heritage and Nature, and Castellazzo di Bolate in Milan. So the Via Appia is interesting because it is an approach to rethink a very important open-air museum, which is like the Via Appia. It's a Roman road. It's a real important open-air museum. How we can enable community participation and create sustainable mobility, accessibility, and education opportunities for people. So this is a very important, interesting reflection, and I was happy that it was rewarded. And on the other side, we have a completely different type of project. This is a type of reuse of an historical building, an important castle, which is reconverted into a creative hub. I just want to go back one slide quickly, because we can see that from the different categories, let's say, we that have an heritage angle, we have an heritage spirit, we see many of those categories fitting for cultural heritage, contributing. But this is what was being highlighted by the prizes. And finally, the only Italian project who was awarded also in this category under 30 is the retrofitting of the UNESCO site of Ivrea. It's a very important site for us. It's a symbolic city. It was created by the visionary person Olivetti, who has wanted to create a real visionary society where workers were also contributed to. There is a very important importance given to community life of the workers, and so a very important, interesting approach to innovation. And this is important because we look at the criteria for selection regarding this project, and it will be very important to analyze the selection criteria of the different projects together with the quality principles and the Davos Declaration principles, to understand and to contribute to the construction of meaning. Because now there is an important work, it was already mentioned before, which concerns the labeling strategy, an important reflection which will characterize the new European Bauhaus projects and assess their degree of quality. It's very important to contribute. The new NEB lab will be launched on the 7th of April, and it really needs to this collective contribution, construction of meaning really needs to continue to be sure that we all look into the same direction. Also important, a reflection on the seal of excellence, so to understand which projects have not reached the possibility to be awarded under EU funds, but can be awarded, can be funded, or can be supported through different funding opportunities. Means really an important reflection on the quality aspect and the quality criteria. And also another reflection important is innovative financing, how we can support those projects, combining different financing sources, which could also not only the EU, but the national, regional, and local level of financing. Another important stream of work, it is regulatory analysis and experimentation. This is going to be launched also soon, and it's very important because together with the funding opportunity, we need to be sure that we enable an environment for this type of innovation. So if we wanted to introduce an innovative approach or an innovative material, we need to be sure, for instance, that this complies with the regulations, and in particular EU regulations, and also the need to produce certifications. So it's very important to contribute also to this discussion. We have
Erminia.
It's closed. This we have online. This last slide only says that we have important online calls that recordings are available, and you can find there additional information on funding opportunities for the new Bauhaus initiatives.
Thank you. Thank you to Erminia. There's a little bit of applause. Hope you can hear it. We're waiting for questions. I have one. You mentioned a lot of projects that you're involved, and you mentioned a lot of projects dedicated to renovation and retrofitting and about places and aesthetics. But I'm more interested in one particular thing that has gained significance lately, which is the cultural education of children and youth. And can you maybe elaborate a little bit about the experience from your perspective, how you've been working with particular educational processes, the active processes, not only just theoretical aspects of education and learning, but hands-in approach to education of cultural heritage for children and youth? Can you probably just explain a little bit about your experience?
Well, I have a double hat on this, because I was in the European Commission, and I was I've been working at the European Year of Cultural Heritage So I can testify that there's been a lot of efforts in this given by the European Commission. There was an entire stream of work on raising awareness and education, mobilizing, for instance, Erasmus Plus and the e-twinning. The e-twinning was a very interesting experiment and exercise, because e-twinning is a digital platform that allows schools from different parts of Europe to work together and compare and better understand their heritage, not only from the local point of view, but it's very important that it was possible, thanks to the e-twinning, to understand the common roots that we have as Europeans, and also the interconnection among our culture. And this is very important. This is very important, this European dimension. The Erasmus Plus also, we discovered during the European Year of Cultural Heritage that Erasmus Plus has dedicated more than 95 million euros to projects supporting cooperation among universities and schools for heritage education and cultural education. On the other hand, in Italy, we used the opportunity of the European Year of Cultural Heritage, and thanks to an important cooperation with our Ministry of Education, to create an important stream of work, also dedicating 80 million euros to promote education and cultural heritage in the schools. We have to say that this was very important, because with the current cuts in financing that all the countries are facing, we have seen that the culture and cultural heritage has been, education has been the resources for that have been shrinking. So this helped a lot to revive and to support schools that wanted to dedicate some activities to these aspects.
Thank you, Erminia. It seems that we have no questions anymore. Thank you very much for your presentation.